A big day in Parliament today. A marathon debate is ongoing over the Modi government's big move on a new legislation to manage Waqf land. I'm Barkhadat. You're with the Mojo story. It is perhaps one of the most polarizing issues in recent political memory. The opposition pitted against the Modi government and its allies over the question of a new set of amendments to the Waqf legislation of 1995. The 2025 amendment bill brings in a series of what the government argues are reforms, including the inclusion of two non-Muslims in both the Central Waqf Council as well as the state Waqf boards. The Muslim Personal Law Board and the entire opposition is protesting, but the numbers are still on the side of the government, definitely in the Lok Sabha, with certain changes proposed by its allies, Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu, that have been accepted by the JPC, to which the new bill was referred. The Modi government looks like it will probably manage to use the advantage of the numbers to push this legislation through. But what is the controversy all about? One of the most searched trends on Google and YouTube today is ye Waqf bill hai kya? A lot of people do not know about it. A lot of ordinary Indians are not concerned with it, or certainly don't know if they should be concerned with it. These changes that have been brought in or proposed by the government, are they reforms to be welcomed, or are they another example of what Gaurav Gogoi today claimed was an example of Muslims being pushed on the defensive and the back foot? Let's introduce our guest today as Parliament turns into an ideological battleground. Sanjay Jha is with us. Sanjay Jha is a passionate supporter of the Congress party, and it's good to see him here on the program as always. Also joining me is Sandeep Ghosh, a man who is a fan of the Prime Minister, but not blindly, certainly, of the BJP. Good to see you, Sandeep. Also joining me is NDA leader, Shiv Sena leader, Suzy Ben Shah. Of course, Eknath Shinde, the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, is fully on board with the BJP when it comes to this new proposed legislation. Also joining me is Zafar Sareshwala. Zafar Bhai has a very interesting and unique perspective on this debate. I think not really blinded by either side, and we'll find out more in just a moment. And also joining me is Atikur Rahman Saab, one of our best-known political analysts as well as Islamic scholars. Good to see you, Atik Saab. Now, I want to get the ball rolling with an excerpt from Kiren Rijiju's speech. Kiren Rijiju made a claim that if this bill does not pass, then tomorrow the Waqf board could even claim the Parliament House to be Waqf land. Take a look.
1970 से एक केस चल रहा था दिल्ली के अंदर में। दिल्ली के अंदर में हमारा सीजीओ कॉम्प्लेक्स है, पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग है, कई प्रॉपर्टीज है, और इसको वक्फ बोर्ड, दिल्ली वक्फ बोर्ड ने क्लेम किया कि ये वक्फ प्रॉपर्टीज है। उसके बाद ये केस चल रहा था अदालत में। उस समय यूपीए सरकार ने पूरा सारा जमीन को डी नोटिफाई करके वक्फ बोर्ड को दे दिया। 123 प्रॉपर्टी। अगर आज हम ये संशोधन लेके नहीं आते तो जिस सदन में हम बैठे हैं, ये पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग, इसको भी क्लेम किया जा रहा था।
So, Kiren Rijiju there, the minister, while tabling the new amendment bill, said that if this bill does not pass, then tomorrow the Waqf board could even claim Parliament House to be Waqf land. One of the key amendments in the new legislation is that the user of property cannot declare the property to be Waqf property. Let's get the debate started. I'll start with you, Suzy Ben. The opposition sees this as yet another example to marginalize Muslims, to in a sense, get into their space, their community space, without taking people into confidence, claiming reform, but really muscle flexing and showing who's the boss. Before we get into the specifics of the legislation, लोग कहते हैं कि जिस माहौल में ये किया जा रहा है, जिस तरह से ये किया जा रहा है, that is the problem.
No, I will allay all your difficulties and concerns, but very good evening to all my dear friends and fellow panelists, and of course, always pleasure to be on your show, Barka. Quickly, now what does the Umeed bill, the Waqf amendment bill, talk about? Umeed is what? United Management, Empowerment, Efficiency and Development Bill. Now that is the meaning of Umeed bill. Now let me tell you, this bill in letter and the spirit, what does it intend to do? It intend to get us transparency, accountability, efficiency, development, and inclusiveness. And inclusiveness of whom? Inclusiveness of gender. Muslim women have been given a place, also of gender, right? That's Muslim women across economic classes, as also various sects of Muslims. Now, you tell me what is wrong in enforcing a statutory. These Waqf board, let me tell you, is not a religious body. It's a statutory body, having hold over or controlling 90 lakh acres of land. It is one of the largest landowner in India. You can't really, as Mr. Rijiju rightly said, that whether it be the railways or the army or the national defense, they cannot be held to be the owners of the property because it's used by the nation at large. So when you have this 90 lakh properties controlled by 300 odd people. Hello?
Sorry, I just wanted to say, according to the Economic Times, 8.7 lakh properties spanning 9.4 lakh acres. So
Yeah, approximately 90. So
I'm quoting the number to you.
yes, yes. So approximately. So what and just 300 people. You tell me this, how can this be allowed? Now there was, now to say that the way it was introduced, the bill was introduced in the earlier session of the parliament. There was a big hue and furor. There were allegations raised. There were protests. So it was sent to the JPC. It was discussed over JPC. Various members, all by member of parliament across political parties participated, and now this bill is introduced. There were certain amendments which were sought, which have been included, like not being retrospective but prospective. The collector, the magistrate, divisional magistrate, not being the final authority. All that has been included. See, if you see, Barkha, against the Waqf property, there are cases across India, whether it be Maharashtra, whether it be the farmers in Maharashtra, whether it be in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, the entire village, including a Chola temple, has been declared as a Waqf property. And why this concern? Because here, one fine day, the Waqf board can decide that this is our land, and they would declare it as a Waqf property. And here you have this aggrieved farmer or a villager or an aggrieved person trying to prove, running from pillar to post to prove that it is my property. And these are old properties, Barkha. Kabhi aisa bhi hota hai that maybe they don't have the land records and therefore they are at the mercy of the Waqf board. So here it is a simple case of distribution, having accountability and having a government say in this property.
Okay. Let's open this up. Sanjay Jha, this is reform. Why should it be opposed? Why should it be opposed ferociously? Does the opposition find itself in a little bit of trap as it did with the triple talaq legislation? It is one thing to say that you don't agree with the larger ecosystem in which this reform is being argued, but it is another thing to oppose the reform itself. Which side are you on?
Barkha, I think this is a very serious debate, and I'm very glad you got a very eminent panel here. I'll answer your question. I also need to debunk Susie Ben's points that she made. I don't think there is only a slight difference between saying 9 lakh and 90 lakhs. I think we need to be very clear here, because this is how a lot of misconception is created in the minds of people. And I think these exaggerations have become pretty much
8.7 lakh properties spanning 9.4 lakh acres.
Yeah, not 94 lakh acres. So I just want to make that we have to be very careful, because it does create a lot of I think the implications can be extremely negative.
She's saying noted. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And here is the point. Susie Ben mentioned a point about the fact that yes, Waqf boards are not religious bodies. There are statutory authorities under the government, which basically debunks what Kiren Rijiju said in Parliament. If the Waqf board there said that on these properties they belong to the Waqf their Waqf properties, why is Kiren Rijiju in Parliament mocking a statutory body? I mean, these are what I tell you exposes the fundamental parochialism of the Narendra Modi government. Let me come down to the point here. I think the ecosystem that you mentioned is critical to this debate. Please remember, and I'm not talking about the timing that, the Eid celebrations have just got over, and you are having at the moment a bill that clearly has left many people from the Muslim community feeling extremely disenfranchised. And I'll give you a couple of points here. What is the ecosystem telling you? You have read the Supreme Court verdict the other day on bulldozers. I mean, it's a shocking statement of what happened in Prayagraj. You know what is happening in terms of lynching deaths in this country. We all know the kind of hate speeches that have been made. And this has been the continuous line of attack on 200 million citizens of this country since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. This context is important to understand, that the Muslims today are legitimately concerned about the intent of a government, whether it's good or bad. Now, let's come down to the merit of the bill very quickly, because I think that's central to your conversation today. And I'll point out just three factors here. Number one, and this is critical, Waqf by user. I have read the data and I have researched this area thoroughly. According to most reports, because even the reports are hard to aggregate, Barkha, because of the nature of the Waqf properties, roughly 60% of the Waqf properties are Waqf by user, which means there may not be a document to establish ownership. Now, here is the problem. The Supreme Court verdict in 2019 on the Babri Masjid demolition case upheld the Waqf by user. According to this act, the Waqf by user is inapplicable, which means it is opening doors to several cases, because these properties have been coming down centuries. You can take it from the 13th century downwards, where there were no documents, or the documents have got obliterated, or they're non-existent.
But does it make sense to you that a user should determine whether something is Waqf property or not? Does that make, because that's a key change, by the way. The bill removes Waqf by user, right? Now you're saying that 60% of what is deemed to be Waqf property is is declared such by the user. That is what this amended bill seeks to end. Does it make sense to you that the user decides हाँ ये तो Waqf property hai?
In fact, let me tell you that if I or you were probably inheritors, not inheritors in terms of actual ownership, because the ownership in a Waqf property, the owner is God himself. Here is the point, that anybody today who's kind of, let's say it's a mosque or a madrasa, or it's an orphanage, or it's a qabristan, there will be no document. It's coming down from the times of the Mughals, even earlier than that. I mean, who will have papers? I mean, to even expect that is preposterous. That is one of the reasons, Barkha, why you notice in the NRC conversation, many people were concerned. They had no even proof of birth of, the date of birth. Forget about centuries old. So I think that's the first area of huge concern. And I can tell you today, if I was, and I'm a Hindu and I'm a Brahmin and I'm very privileged, but if I was a Muslim, it would worry me. No, let me put the second point before we move on. It's very important. Why is it that the Waqf tribunal, which is again appointed by the state government, being made to actually become subjugated to a district collector, who, by the way, is a government appointee? And we all know the kind of institutional discrimination that exists in the police and the government apparatus. And one of the encroachers in Waqf properties is the government itself. So Mr. Modi's government says, we'll have a district collector override the Waqf tribunal, register Waqf properties, who may be, by the way, who represents the government, and imagine his role in cases of litigation and encroachment, which I think is absolutely bizarre. And my third point, non-Muslims on the Waqf board or the Waqf Central Council. To my mind, I think, let's be honest here. I'm a Hindu. I'm aware of how many Hindu temples and trusts there are. Are we allowing non-Hindus to be part of a trust? And I know the answer is a categorical no. Why should the Muslims be subjected overnight to suddenly a non-Muslim becoming a CEO? The removal of an Islamic scholar from a tribunal. All these tells you that the motives of this government are hugely suspect. This is my opening line.
All right. Let me, before I come to Zafar Sareshwala, Sandeep Ghosh, and Atikur Rahman, Sudiben, let's just allow one round of, one sentence to you. One sentence to you, Sudiben. You did note you're mixing up the digits there. That's why I said to you 9.4 lakh.
Yes,
right. Go ahead.
Now, quickly, the land revenue records are always maintained by the collector. Whether you and me have a dispute on land, we go to the collector. And similarly, therefore, it should be extended to Waqf as far as the land is concerned. This is the question, land is in concern. When there is Mr. Rijiju very clearly said the Honorable Minister, that they are not going to take over the madrasas or the mosques or the dargahs. The point here is there is a dispute. If there is a dispute and if you can't trace the title, there should be some recourse to the person who's aggrieved. That is the long and short of it. And government is not the encroacher. And let me tell you, Mr. Sanjay Jha, the government the temples that we have in Hindu temples, like Siddhivinayak, like Sai Baba charity, it's run by a government board. Everyone is a member. There is a supervision of the government. Here, especially in the Waqf board, there is no government control. It cannot be run in a transparent manner. That is the long and short of it.
Okay. Now, in terms of the community, we have seen women come out today in support of this legislation. We have seen yes, I'm saying that. We just showed those pictures, but we've also seen protests. On this program, you will get a full 360-degree perspective of what's happening. These are the protests. Earlier, you saw the women supporting this legislation, but here are women who are opposing it. So this is a polarizing issue for the community. Before I get in, Zafar Bhai, Atiq Sam, and Sadeep Ghosh, Gaurav Gogoi was leading the charge for the opposition in Lok Sabha today, making a fiery speech, what he called a 4D counter to the government's intent behind this legislation. Take a look.
आज इस सरकार का इस बिल के द्वारा 4 इनके मूल उद्देश्य। पहला मूल उद्देश्य है कि संविधान को कमजोर करना, टू डाइल्यूट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। इनका दूसरा उद्देश्य है भ्रम फैलाना, टू डिफेम द माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज ऑफ इंडिया। इनका तीसरा उद्देश्य है टू डिवाइड द इंडियन सोसाइटी। हमेशा हमारे बीच में एक लिटिगेशन चलता रहे, मसला और बढ़ता जाए, ये उनका उद्देश्य है। और चौथा इनका उद्देश्य डाइल्यूट, डिफेम, डिवाइड, और चौथा इनका उद्देश्य है टू डिसएनफ्रेंचाइज द माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज।
So that's a big charge from Gaurav Gogoi, that the ultimate aim is to disenfranchise the minority community. I want to bring in Zafar Sareshwala. Go ahead, Zafar Bhai. We have discussed this issue before. Do you support these changes? Are you opposed to them, or do you believe there's no substantive change?
See, Barkha, first of all, as it is now, Waqf board, it is not controlled by the Muslims. Waqf board is a statutory body. Every member of Waqf board is appointed by the state. We have 32 or 29 Waqf boards. Every single member of Waqf board is appointed by the respective state. The chairman of Waqf board, who appoints him? He is appointed by the government. The CEO, Waqf boards have a CEO who is an IAS officer. Who appoints them? So actually to say that Waqf board has nothing to do with the Muslim community. It is directly under the control of the government of the day. And on top
even now,
it,
you're saying even now it's directly under the control
yes,
of the government of the day.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I become a Waqf board member? No. Can somebody from the Muslim community ever? They are all appointed by the government of the day. And the Waqf Council, which is the apex body, it is directly under the central government. Who appoints the chairman of Central Waqf Council? Who are the members in the Waqf Council? So even now, every single Waqf board is controlled directly by the government of the day. Second, all these Waqf, as you said that there is Waqf tribunal. Is Waqf tribunal controlled by the Muslims? Who appoints the tribunal? That tribunal is directly under the law department of the respective state. The judge of Waqf tribunal, do the Muslim community appoint them? He is appointed by the government. So even now, total control on every single Waqf board or whatever claim they make, it is government of the day. Now, my concern is different. I'm not getting into whether reform is good or reform is bad. My concerns are two very important. For me, as you have mentioned now, Barkha, that Waqf has 7 or 8 lakh properties. They have 9 lakh acres of land. Okay. Now, Barkha, if bare minimum, one property can easily fetch you 10,000 rupees a month, then you know how much income this should have generated. My
That's
problem is
right.
that it has been the biggest disaster in the country. Had these Waqf been managed properly, at least we could have seen 20, 30,000 crore of income generating by these Waqf. It is abysmal low. So my concern is that these Waqf, actually it is managing asset. We need asset managers. We need people who have skill to manage assets. And we have got thousands of such people in the country. I think this should be given to them. Even the Muslims whom you appoint in Waqf board, don't appoint the politicians who have never ever bought a property worth 10 lakhs of rupees in their life. You are actually bringing those people. यानी हमारे यहाँ पुराने जमाने में कहावत होती थी कि 1 लाख रुपए की सलाह आप उससे लो जो करोड़ रुपए जिसके पास हो, और आप क्या करते हो, हजारों करोड़ की प्रॉपर्टी उन लोगों को संभालने देते हो जिन्होंने 10 लाख की प्रॉपर्टी कभी जिंदगी में नहीं खरीदी. तो ये मुसीबत उसकी है.
So 8 minutes. So you are saying that the Waqfs have been mismanaged as assets. They should have been generating more revenue that should have been going down to the poorest member of the Muslim community.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you're also saying there's already enough government control, and it is a myth that there isn't. Zafar Sareshwala?
Yeah. Barkha,
Yes? All right.
Yes. My concern is, because I'm here in Abu Dhabi sitting now. I have seen Waqf, Awqaf in this part of the world. And Barkha, I went to Waqfs of this part of the world. Every Waqf is managed by world-class asset managers. And the mandate is this simple. We are giving you this $1 billion worth of property. How much value addition?
But Zafar Sareshwala, the district collector is not an asset manager either.
So that's why.
In case of a dispute, Barkha,
that Waqf board, you need to bring those people who have that
I know. But it's not like we're private. All I'm saying is it's not like we're privatizing and creating asset managers for the management of these Waqfs.
I'm saying by request to the government, even now, the people whom you appoint in Waqf board, they should be those people who have that capacity to manage assets. And the second point, why on earth this Waqf was? The main purpose of Waqf is that any property or an asset which is monetized or a wealth comes out of it, and that wealth is used for underprivileged, downtrodden, poor, widows, orphans.
Okay.
And in this part of the world, even a widow, even a divorcee, the husband cannot pay her the maintenance, she gets it from the Waqf board. So now coming to our problem, lot of people are asking me, ye kya hai bhai? Because most of the Muslims, they just don't know ki ye Waqf hai kya. Why? Because I have yet to see a Muslim widow or a Muslim orphan or a Muslim underprivileged who has got something, his fees are paid or his poverty has become better due to Waqf. So the problem is that asset is not managed, it is dismal low, and the proceeds are not going to where it had to go.
Okay, Atiq or Rahman Saab, do you agree, do you disagree, or you partially agree and partially disagree? That there needs to be reform. I have seen many leading lights of the community say, yes, please bring reform. It is the manner and the specifics of the reform over which there is debate. What do you say to Zafar Sareshwala that there needs to be asset management? This could have been a great source of revenue for the poorest person of the Muslim community, especially women and children. What do you say, Atiq Saab?
Barkha, I fully endorse what Zafar Saab has said. All Waqf boards to me were neck deep into corruption. We agree that mismanagement was at large. But Barkha, this particular remedy which is being suggested by this government is worse than the disease. You want us to give the entire Waqf lands to the government, which are big satin from the hands of the small satins. This can't be possible. And Barkha, in the parliament today, the government is sounding so soothing. You know who is speaking on this? The Minority Affairs Minister. And what exactly he is stressing the point upon is that large parts of Muslims, the underprivileged, the pasmandas are going to benefit out of the amendment. Now, believe this, Barkha, this government is assuring to me that we will be assuring all the underprivileged Muslims all these lands when they cannot tolerate one Aligarh Muslim university to be a minority institution. How they have challenged it in the Supreme Court,
Right,
you
right.
know it. Other thing is, who is speaking in the parliament? Anurag Thakur, who wants to shoot me out. वो गोली मारना चाहते हैं मुझ जैसे मुसलमानों को और वो चाह रहा है कि I should believe him that all the Muslims are going to benefit out of this amendment. What shroud they are playing on us, Barkha? What shroud they are playing with us?
Atiq Saab, sorry, before I come to Sandeep, because you sound so upset, I think what you're saying is you agree that the Waqf boards are neck deep in corruption, but you disagree with what is being proposed. It upsets you when you see Anurag Thakur, who is associated with the Goli Mare Saloko slogan, being one of the faces of the debate. And I understand that. But specifically, what do you oppose in this legislation? Specifically, what is the opposition when you say the remedy is worse?
Fine. Barkha, there is a clause in the amendment bill which says that no suit, appeal, or other proceedings for the enforcement of any right on behalf of the Waqf which has not been registered shall be instituted, commenced, heard, tried, or decided by any court after 6 months of the commencement of this Waqf amendment bill. Is this democratic? Is this not arbitrary? You know, how can we trust this government, the Modi government, Barkha, when the Prime Minister goes on a public platform saying that ये Congress party इन मुसलमानों को, इन घुसपैठियों को, ये ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करने वालों को, आपकी हिंदू भाइयों की तमाम चीजें छीनकर इनको दे देना चाहती है? Barkha, how can I trust this Prime Minister and this party? Tell me.
Sandeep Ghosh, I want to take that to you. I think one of the points is that even if the reform is, or the need for reform is agreed on. So you hear an Atikur Rahman saying, yes, these boards are neck deep in corruption. I don't speak for them. But the larger environment cannot be removed from the conversation. Then Anurag Thakur, associated with the Goli Mare Saloko slogan, when he gets up and he wants to assure me, why will I trust him? What do you say as someone who supports the Prime Minister but not any kind of rabid extremism in the way that I have known you? What do you say?
I think to further modify your description of me, you can say that I don't blindly support the Prime Minister, but I'm certainly not a supporter of BJP. I take a very objective view of BJP. Prime Minister, as you say, I do on things which I think he is. It's not an unqualified support. There are times when I've also criticized him. But that apart, that's just a matter of clarification. I speak here, Barkha, not either as a legal expert, not as a religious expert. So there is neither religious lens. I may not be politically agnostic, but religion-wise, I'm fairly neutral. So that's how I don't see it in this way. I believe all laws and the Constitution itself are living documents, and they have to undergo changes from time to time. And it's nothing can remain static. Just because something existed in the time of Akbar does not necessarily mean that is still valid today. Or just people say that something has been there in Vedic times doesn't mean those things work today. So this should be a work in progress, and it has to undergo. So now the question arises are two things. Where I have a problem is these sort of matters should be considered on merit rather than giving it immediately a religious twist or even a very skewed political twist, because that's when we miss the woods for the tree. Now, without being a lawyer, I have tried to, in my layman's way, go through what are the elements. First is the name of the act which is being changed. And now they have come up with this Umeed or whatever they are saying, but that's a matter of semantics or label. Let's leave that aside. Then there's the question, I think the biggest question is how the formation of the Waqf, where this is today, there is allowed by declaration or users or endowment. They're trying to remove that that people could at will, and it happens in other religions also, I know, at will declare something to be either a Devata property or a Waqf property, and thereby that is where the mischief sets in. So they are trying to remove that Waqf by users, our declaration, and they're saying that no, donors have to be practicing Muslims, for 5.5, more than 5 years, and also women cannot be denied family inheritance, which is today also happening. I don't see personally a problem with this in merit. Then the question is the most, I think, the ticklish where the government thing is on government property. Today, government property is not defined. They're saying government property can be denotified by the government if it is identified that this is not, and that will be identified by the collector. In terms of principle, I don't think anybody should have an objection to that either, because if there is something which is being occupied illegally just by calling it, just like the parliament example Kiren Rijiju said, those are situations if people are just claiming a property, what's your problem there? Now the question of, it might come into the question of what others are raising, what is the authority of the Waqf council, Waqf board, tribunal. Those can be further debated, but if you were to look at these fundamental provisions, I don't see an issue in any of those from a pure common sense standpoint.
Yeah, but Sandeep, do you accept that, I think when Atikur Rahman spoke, he wasn't defending the Waqf boards. He was lamenting his perception of his place in politics today, in society today, when an Aligarh Muslim University's minority character is being questioned or challenged in the Supreme Court, where the diktats on namaz on the streets in districts of Uttar Pradesh, and these are old images from near Delhi, long back. But the more recent arguments have been over Eid. Should Eid namaz be allowed on the streets or not? And we saw those police statements. These have coexisted with the Sogate Modi outreach. There seems to be a kind of confusion within the BJP also on how it wants to structure its outreach with Muslims.
No, definitely, you see, you cannot delink the politics from any of these discussions. But at the same time, we cannot let our politics and religion cloud this discussion. Anything where there is a sort of a religious angle, it cannot go out of bounds, and that cannot be, taboo, which nobody can discuss or question. As soon as you do that, it is attacking minorities, or for that matter, attacking majority, or whatever you might say. It has to be dealt with on merits, whether the courts do it or the government do it. And the government, I think, at least in a process, they've gone through the JPCs. It has been discussed on both. JPCs have discussed with both houses of parliament. They've gone through a process. So now you question it on the process. You let it go through for so long, but now you want to throw the baby and the bathwater out of the window.
That's a fair point, that it has gone through the JPC. The JPC has gone through rigorous outreach. The bill, as referred to the JPC, now brought back to the House, is not the same bill. The allies have had their inputs. The opposition has had their inputs. Before, I know, Sanjay, I saw your hand go up. Amit Shah says there are many misconceptions around this bill. I'm just going to play out that clip and I'll come right back to Sanjay, then Zafar Sareshwala, and then we'll go around the panel again. Take a look.
मुझे लगता है या तो निर्दोष भाव से या तो राजनीतिक कारणों से ढेर सारी भ्रांतियां कई सदस्यों के मन में भी है और कई सारी भ्रांतियां सदन के माध्यम से, आपके माध्यम से पूरे देश भर में फैलाने का प्रयास भी हो रहा है। बिल पर चर्चा का जवाब तो माननीय रिज्जू साहब देंगे। मैं कुछ बातें यहां रखी है, इसको मेरी समझ के हिसाब से क्लैरिफाई करने का जरूर प्रयास करूंगा।
Right, the Home Minister's full speech is available on our platform. You can watch that full speech along with all the other key speeches, including from opposition leaders and BJP leaders. Sanjay Shah, then Zafar Sareshwala. Sanjay, you were smirking when I said that Sandeep is correct in saying it's gone through the parliamentary process, but it has. It has gone through the parliamentary process. The original bill is not the bill that has been brought back to the House for voting, but do go ahead. Also, it is painful, irrespective of where we stand on politics, for a fellow citizen like Atikur Rahman to stand up today and say that, when I hear a major political leader speaking who in the past has been associated with a slogan like Goli Maro Salon Ko, and another BJP leader, I should say Kapil Mishra, has been, at the receiving end of an FIR ordered by the Delhi High Court.
Yeah.
These are sensitivities we have to acknowledge. We can support bits of the reform or all of the reform, but we still have to grant these sensitivities. But do go ahead, Sanjay Jha.
Barkha, the reason why I smirked was because the JPC, I can tell you, was a sham. And I think that is the tragedy in our country, that our parliamentary democracy, it has certain protocols that are not being respected. Absolutely not. Now, on your program today, you have two very decent Muslim gentlemen, both Zafar Bhai as well as Atikur Bhai. And they have both said that yes, the Waqf board needs a reform. Is there mismanagement? Of course, I'm sure there is. I think the Narendra Modi government over the last 10 years is the most corrupt government in our history. We saw it in electoral bonds, and we have seen it in several allegations of scams, right on from demonetization to what have you. But the issue, therefore, is this. It is not why just the Waqf board. I would have loved it if Mr. Modi's government today was debating electoral financing and explaining why it came up with a law that was unconstitutional.
But isn't that an apples and oranges answer? Like you've gone somewhere else. You've gone somewhere else with this conversation.
I'm coming to the point. This is the context that we need to understand. Here is the point here. That end of day, if you get into the nitty-gritties of the amendments, and I mentioned a few at the very beginning, if you look at even the survey commissioner, who is now, that role is going to be handed over to the district collector, you can clearly see that there are many ambiguities which have been created. I'll give you another example. We are talking about context. You mentioned about Kapil Mishra. Can you blame, at the moment, let's all of us, barring the two gentlemen, are all Hindus here on our panel, I'm assuming. All of us should wear a Muslim hat for the next 15 seconds. And hand on heart, be honest and say that when you hear about Kapil Mishra's hate speeches, or Parvesh Verma, or Mr. Modi talking about Mangal Sutra and Bhais. This is the Prime Minister of the country, no less, by the way. And you have Ramesh Bidhuri in Parliament making the most vulgar attack on the minorities. Would you and I, anybody on this program, feel safe as a citizen of this country?
But I think the point, I hear what you're raising, but what Sandeep Ghosh says, and briefly, I want to go to Zafar Sareshwala. So one sentence response there. He says, argue the bill on merit. There is a larger debate to be had over language used by BJP leaders, the outreach, the paradoxes in that. But does that equal, this is a good idea, but I'm going to oppose it because of everything else? That's the question he's asking.
Very, very succinctly, I answered. Therefore, I actually tried to bite the bullet at the very beginning. For Sandeep, I have 3 points that he can come back and answer, and I will say that in 5 seconds each. Waqf by user is over 60% of Waqf properties. I want to ask you a question. You seriously expect legal documents for properties that have been handed down, by the way, for religious charitable purposes since the last 700 years? You really expect that? And this government is removing it. Why are they putting non-Muslim members into the Waqf board and the Waqf council? Has to be explained. Why is the DM or the district collector who represents the government being empowered when majority of the encroachment is probably happening because of government property? Do you know, Barkha, that 71,000 cases of litigation and encroachments are on as we talk, and a majority of them have got to do with the government, and the government is empowering itself, which is the problem.
Okay, let's get Zafar Sareshwala in. Zafar Sareshwala, I think Atikur Rahman agrees with you on the problem, but not with the solution. And he has sentiments attached to it. And the sentiments are the perception that minority institutes are today, there's an effort to take away their minority status. There are, this whole debate over namaz on the streets and the diktats that have come with it, this Eid. And all of this has kind of coexisted with the Eid outreach program, which is called the Sogate Modi program. Now, these contradictions, can they be divorced from this legislation? Atikur Rahman says, when I hear Anurag Thakur making a speech, I don't want to trust the legislation. What would you say?
See, Barkha, I always say this,
that in our life, not only here about Waqf or so many things, but in our life also, we have two problems all the time. एक मेरा मसला वो है कि मैं खुद कर सकता हूं, मुझे किसी की जरूरत नहीं है, और एक मेरा मसला वो है कि मैं आपकी मदद के बगैर नहीं कर सकता। तो अब जो हुकूमत है या गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द डे है, वो क्या करते हैं नहीं करते, उसमें मेरा कोई कुछ है ही नहीं। आई कांट डू एनीथिंग, जो गवर्नमेंट करेगी। और यहां भी दिस वक़्फ़ बिल, see I have been telling this to lot of Muslims also earlier also, जब से since this waqf amendment has come out, that I may argue, I may say anything on television, we may do a dharna at Jantar Mantar, everything. Tomorrow there is going to be vote, and the government of the day has brute majority. They have got 293 numbers and the others have 236. तो ये पास हो जाएगा, ठीक है। मेरा what I had shown, my two concerns are very important, and so many other concerns. I would request that, talking in front of JPC, all that is okay, but there has to be a track to diplomacy from the Muslim community, talking directly to the government of the day. We have India Pakistan, हमारी लड़ाई है उनके साथ, है ना बरखा? लेकिन do you think, Barkha, you know all this, do you think that there is track to diplomacy not going on between the Indian authorities and Pakistan authorities? Afghanistan, for example, we had no connection, but there was something happening between. So my concern and my request to the Muslim community leaders is that, okay, all this will happen, but there should be a group of Muslim intellectuals,
They did try to meet with, they met with the RSS chief. They met with the RSS chief. Muzaffar Bhai, they met with the RSS chief. I remember Najib Jung, General Shah, who was the Vice Chancellor of AMU, Shahid Siddiqui, तीन नाम तो मुझे ऐसे ही याद हैं, who went to meet with Mohan Bhagwat. ये बातचीत होती है. Mr. Modi also meets with Muslim delegations. It's not that he doesn't. I think what you're saying is don't mediate your relationship with the BJP through the Muslim Personal Law Board.
What I'm saying, Barkha, see, I also met Mohan Bhagwat Sahab. I spoke to him, whatever I had.
Yes.
But this should continue. It should not be one-off. In fact, when I was going back, Mr. Bhagwat came to see me off, and he said, Zafar bhai, ye mulaqat aakhir nahi honi chahiye. You need to constantly talk to them, constantly bring it to their notice. It should be outside the purview of politics. It should be there.
So you're saying some of these concerns are genuine, but the Muslim community has to open a dialogue with the government of the day, which has the numbers to, through a parliamentary process, bring this legislation through. Suzy Ben, sorry, Atiq Saab just wants to respond to that point, so I'll give him the mic and then come to you. Atiq or Rehman.
We have a precedent. Whenever the Supreme Court has opined upon the temple trust, the corruption into them, the Supreme Court has said that the government is duty bound to remove all the corruption in the management of the temple trust and return them back to the community. The same can be done easily without any fuss by this government. All the corruption should be corrected by this government and it should be returned back, because the land donated in the name of Allah belongs only to the community. If there is corruption, remove it. What's the fuss about it?
So you are saying correct the corruption, reform the management, and restore the land back to the community.
Correct.
So I want to ask Suzy Ben one thing, which is an important thing that Atiq Saab has said. Among many Hindu groups, there is a debate that, why are temples in government control? Sandeep will know that this is a big debate in the right-wing base. Now here, we are giving the government so much control, which Zafar Bhai will say, abhi bhi hai, but some would argue, और भी ज़्यादा हो रहा है. तो एक तरफ we are arguing कि temples में से government को निकालिए, क्या role है किसी भी government का, not this government, any government. Let the community manage. Atiq or Rehman's point is a good point, that we acknowledge the corruption, we acknowledge the need for the reform, but let this belong to our community. Let this belong to our community. Like the court has mandated in the past, you can clean up a system and give it back to the people that it is meant to represent. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think by just two things I would like to add. I heard what you said. And, as far as the registration of property is concerned, now registration of a property is mandated by all property owners. So if a Waqf board also is asked to register a property, I don't see where the difficulty is. Now, the other point that you raised was removing corruption. I wish it was that simple. The current system of the Waqf board is completely an opaque system. And that is why through this amendment, what we are seeking is transparency, and there is also the audit provision. And also further, one more point, Atik Saab. This is the law. There will be rules framed under this law, under the law for the effective implementation by the state government. And therefore, there will be a mechanism where everyone will participate, including the Muslims. You cannot deny that it is very specifically said the majority of the board members will be Muslims. So therefore, while there could be an MP who is a non-Muslim be a part of the board, but essentially it will be managed by the Muslims. I also want to ask you one question while you're talking about correction. Tell me, of the totally land property owned by the Waqf board, how many hospitals have been created? How many children's homes have been created? Has there anything done for the women, those who are widowed or who left alone? Any skilling centers have been formed? So this is a way to ensure that what belongs to the community is given to the community and who deserves it, who need to be
Okay. I think there. I think
the whole
Urrahman,
issue is beyond Barka closing line. This issue is beyond who says what or why Anurag Thakurji was allowed to speak, can't be denied. He's the member of the parliament. But the
yes.
basic understanding, the why this amendment has been called the Umeed, why it has been there, let us discuss, let us debate.
Okay. We are debating exactly. We are debating exactly that in a very free and civil way. I think 30 seconds, then Sandeep Ghosh has to come in. Please, 30-second interjection, Atik Urrahman. Yes.
With regards, Susiben, with regards, but the amendment bill says that if within 6 months, if a non-registered Waqf land is not proved, you cannot challenge it in any court, in any tribunal, in anywhere. Secondly, the UCC Barkha has been brought into Uttarakhand as a pilot project. Why not the government bring it as a pilot project, all the Waqf land in Delhi, and build a hospital, a good college, a university, return it back to the community as a pilot project? The things will be very much clear.
Okay.
This is
So
transparency.
I think we have some constructive suggestions here. I don't think we're seeing any blind support for the management of these Waqf boards. Sandeep Ghosh, let's bring you in. And I think you might want to respond to Sanjay Jha's 3 questions for you. Do go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do that. But as you said, the kind of discussions we are having, this is precisely the kind of discussion which should be taking place either on the floor of the House or, to track 2 or what has happened in JPC, because no law is perfect. And there would be certainly scope for improvement in this bill as well. So that should be a matter of discussion, negotiation, etc. And instead of that, we are taking extreme positions, and we are as we have become a bipolar world and a bipolar society, we are just getting to extreme position and based on certain either prejudices or lenses. So my counter to a Sanjay Jha, since you asked for it. And Sanjay, notably, he introduced himself to be a friend of everybody, leaving me out. I don't know whether it was by default or by design. At the
That's because you're a special friend.
Yeah. So anyway, coming back to that, to Sanjay's point, Sanjay has a problem with this government. He thinks this government is corrupt, quote unquote, and therefore he doesn't trust it. I didn't trust the UPA government because I thought it was corrupt. I found some statements of right or wrong of Manmohan Singh or somebody else, which were, I thought, either appeasing minorities or something else. I didn't trust. So with that, a country cannot go on. Yes, today somebody will trust somebody today, and that is where your parliamentary process has to go through. And I would here grant to Zafar Bhai that if this government is, because it has a majority, if it is trying to push something through, not only the optics, because after passing a law, that's not the end of the story. It has to, you see the aftermath, the pushback, and whether it leaves scars or damages in society, all of it. Atik Bhai's suggestion, that why don't you throw Supreme Court thing? Why don't you throw out the corrupt people and give it back to the community? Uh, uh, Very laudable, but do you think that will work? Even at that point in time, the religious angle and various other things will come in. So we have to see the. I'll just take 15 seconds more. Now, Sanjay was raising several points. Now, I'm not too sure whether the law envisages that 700-year-old walk will be reopened just now. The whole idea about this new thing is about current properties which are getting transferred. If indeed that is an open-ended thing which is left in the law, that can be addressed and changed. When you're talking about non-Muslims on the board, as Shishban has pointed out, there's only 2 people you are saying getting nominated, and that too in the central council as well as at the state level. It is not so, but each one of these are open for discussion, negotiation. One has to approach it in that manner. Then, as I say, throw the proverbial baby and the bathwater out.
Okay. The point is that the bill has actually gone through rigorous discussion. And if it clears the Lok Sabha, it will go to the Rajya Sabha, and then it could well become law. It's time to take very quick last comments. Atiq Saab, and then Sanjay, then Susie Ben, and in that order, Sandeep, feel free to add also, of course. Atiq Saab, 30-second closing thoughts. Now what? It is in Parliament. It is going to be voted on.
That if the government is very much clear on this, this can break big good bridges between the Muslim community and the BJP. But we cannot trust this government. Their past is so furious on the community that the Modi government will have to prove it hard. By this amendment, as the opposition says that they are ready to just use up our lands. So build the trust deficit. We are all with the government in the amendment, and the corruption at large in the bodies should be immediately removed.
Okay, but you do see a context to building bridges if there is a proper political outreach, something that Zafar Sareshwala has also referred to. Sanjay Jha, closing thoughts? Sanjay Jha?
First and foremost, Sandeep, you're a friend, and I apologize for not including you at the very beginning. But here are my 2 points. I think it's about time we rose above this foolish romanticism about the BJP making an outreach to the Muslim community, because if they did, frankly speaking, they will become politically irrelevant with the larger vote bank that they work on. Here is the truth. The truth is this, and this is my response to you, Sandeep. Can anybody in this country trust a government, which is basically the BJP, when they have now encouraged the revival of the whole dispute on the Places of Worship Act, which is now being challenged for its own constitutionality? And end of day, you can make out, Barkha, how ambivalent and how opportunistic this government is. The Supreme Court gave it 1 month to come up with an affidavit, and they still haven't done that. So that's the first point. When they can start about, we'll look at Mathura, we'll look at Banaras. They are basically sending out a message that for them, their historical grievances matter, whether they are real or imaginary. Waqf properties, unfortunately, have the similar problem with a large Muslim population, and they are completely justified because the Muslims are seeing it day in and day out. And the truth is one. I can tell you, I'll give you this one example, the difference between the UPA and the NDA. I remember my good friend Sashi resigning on a most atrocious allegation. The BJP forced him out, the Congress crumbled on an IPL allegation. And here you have a leader in the BJP in Delhi who's got an FIR on the Delhi riots, and he's continuing as if nothing has happened. That is the brazenness that worries, I think, every Muslim in this country.
Okay, Susie Ben, closing thoughts? Can we unmute Susie Ben?
This government walks the talk. It is the third term that they are in the government, and maybe they'll go beyond 5 years and beyond this also. So it's about time that the Muslim community or the minorities or those who are aggrieved to have a dialogue with the government. We are open for discussion instead of just spreading falsehood like that the madrasas and the mosques and the crematoriums will be taken over. Instead, have a dialogue. That is the beginning point. Not trusting, I think the BJP or the NDA are walking the talk, whether it be 370, whether it be the triple talaq, whether it be the Waqf bill. We are very keen to engage with the Muslims. The amendment bill, the Umeed bill, is with a view to weed out corruption, and the Muslim community should support us. It should be used for the larger good of the community, for the children, for the women who are underprivileged, all of them. So therefore, it is about time we rest the distrust, we rest our concerns about distrusting the government. We are the government in power 5 years and beyond. So let us have a dialogue. Let us work for the upliftment of the Muslim community. That is the only thing that this Gandiya government is seeking.
Okay, before I give Zafar Sareshwala the closing word, Sandeep, very briefly, you know so many of your own friends, my friends also, have spoken up very passionately about taking out government control over temples, right? The Waqf, actually, this new legislation brings, reinforces government control. Zafar Sareshwala, I would argue, abhi bhi hai. It in a way makes it stronger. It makes, it allows for appeals to High Court. It removes the Muslim law expert from the tribunal. So it makes it a more secular, for lack of a better word, a more secular sort of representation, primarily Muslim with two non-Muslims and mandatorily two women among the Muslims in both the Central Council and the state boards. But isn't there too much government in the management of this? If we're talking about corruption, isn't there too much government?
I wouldn't agree with you on that, Barkha. In this, the government's presence is tokenism, maybe giving it a certain legitimacy from being today totally a body which is under kind of nobody's control. I think the bigger issue is, which is I think the corrections or reforms which is coming in, is not only about the women, but also bringing in the other denominations of Muslims representation into the Waqf boards. I think that is what is to be seen. I don't see, in fact, my worry would these two people who will get into the thing as political nominees, as the kind of people you will get, whether they really discharge their job or these will become, sinecures or some kind of a bonus to get onto a committee. And you're just talking of two at the state level, two at the central level. What difference will they make?
Zafar Sareshwala, closing word to you. I think important points have been raised in this discussion, and I think Sandeep makes the correct point that Parliament needs to get into specifics beyond the rhetoric of opposition versus Modi government. On the specifics, what would you urge the government to do at this point? It has the numbers, as you said, but there's more to democracy. There's more to democracy than numbers. What is your last word?
See, my contention is very simple. I don't want a rubber stamp representation of Muslim. Just because he's a Muslim, 3 inch ki daadi, 3 inch ki topi, usko wahan bitha diya. No. I would rather want, because it should be run professionally. Government of India has public sector undertakings. They are owned by government, but they manage as profit making. So Waqf board should be managed as asset management company. I have no problem. I don't want a dishonest and incompetent Muslim running. Rather, I would prefer an honest and a competent Hindu. And the revenue and ultimately the usage goes to underprivileged, poor, orphans, for which actually the Waqf is. So I think this is the biggest reform which the government of India needs to do.
And do you support this legislation, or what does the government need to do politically now? The legislation may well pass. It has the numbers, as you pointed out.
Yeah, see, it is already, see, they have majority. And yes, the better part, government has already incorporated some of the suggestions made by TDP and Nitish Kumar.
JDU.
So I always believe that when there is a negotiation, no solution comes to your stated position. There has to be some give and take. So my advice that even if the legislation is made, Muslims should not lose the fate of not engaging the government. Even after that, they need to engage directly with the topmost leadership.
Well, it is going to be something to watch. What will be the repercussions, the politics that flow from this legislation? Voting is to take place in Lok Sabha, and then the bill moves to Rajya Sabha. We leave it there. We'll keep tracking the debate, the key speeches, the debate, the voting is all live on our platform. But for now, we will say thank you to Sandeep Ghosh, to Suzy Ben Shah, to Atiko Rahman, to Zafar Sureshwala, and to Sanjay Jha. And of course, to our audience, thank you and see you all soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.